Hey guys, welcome to another video on this channel. The Graveyard mod for Forge and Fabric will introduce new spooky structures, mobs and blocks to Minecraft, in order to make your Minecraft adventure more thrilling and challenging. You can discover new structures, face powerful foes, and finally fight against the corrupted champion. Let's dive in. Let's go through all of the structures included in the mod. Occasionally, you can find small graves in your world in different variants. They can appear as normal variants, desert variants, savanna variants, and mountain variants. Sometimes the graves are just a single block, like chiseled deep slate block, with a gold block below it. Sometimes they are built with an anvil, ceramics, and a coffin below the grave, or just with a gravestone, some deep slate, or bricks and a coffin below. Sometimes a grave, like the small mountain grave, contains also a sarcophagus. At times, you can also find a slightly larger grave, built with deep slate blocks, and two sarcophagi underneath, or two coffins underneath. Oh, and by the way, ceramics can be broken, and they contain some loot, and coffins as well as sarcophagi can be accessed by right-clicking, like a chest. The grave variants can differ a bit depending on the biome. Especially the normal small grave type has special variations. The mushroom grave is a small structure with a gravestone, warped wood blocks, and mushroom blocks. Below the grave you can find a sarcophagus. There's also a second version with red mushroom blocks, and also a sarcophagus underneath. The small graveyards contain multiple graves with coffins, an anvil, a chest, and a mob spawner. The loot in the structure is usually not that strong, but I found a totem of undying twice here. There are 7 variants of the structure. Small desert graveyards are built with sandstone, are slightly larger than the normal small graveyards, and have 2 spawners, and more graves with coffins. Watch out, here you have to dig 1 block deeper to access the coffins. There's also a sarcophagus, a small urn, and a glazed urn. Urns contain loot, can be accessed by right-clicking, or can be broken to drop all the loot at once. The medium graveyard structure contains some ceramics, urns, graves with coffins, and sarcophagi blocks. A small mausoleum with some loot. Behind the mausoleum you can find another sarcophagus. And there's a church with chests and a mysterious book. The book is a diary entry by 2 adventurers who found safety in a small village after exhausting and dangerous journeys through the wilderness. The structure can also be found in a larger brick variant, which contains many more graves and some sarcophagi, which can contain some pretty decent loot. And there are also some chests, anvils, and ceramics. In the entrance of the structure you can find another book. It continues the stories about the 2 adventurers. The writer felt like he can finally take a rest in the safety of the village, but his companion seemed to become more tense and quick-tempered by the day. One day later, one of the villagers got sick, his skin covered with rashes, and his eyes started bleeding. He died within hours. The companions decided to stay for the funeral, to pay their respects. The large graveyard can spawn tigers and snowy tigers, in all different sizes and variations, so not every graveyard of this type is the same. It contains many gravestones and ceramics, as well as some urns and anvils. As always, there are coffin and sarcophagus blocks below the graves, and there are also some spawners hidden. Especially below the big graves, there is valuable loot. Sometimes you also need to dig 1 block deeper here to access the coffins and sarcophagi. You might also find some small mossy stone piles or moss piles here, in which you can sometimes find glazed urns or small urns with pretty valuable loot. You can also find flower beds here, and sometimes a small camp with barrels and chests. There's also a fountain in which you can find an urn with valuable loot. You can also explore another mausoleum building, which contains a glazed urn and ceramics. The structure also has a pond with a glazed urn with valuable loot in it, and a horrifying building called the Wither Skeleton Mill, which is filled with skeletons, spawners, and some pretty good loot. Next to the mill, there's also a small camp with a dead body and a barrel with a book. The book tells a story about a traveler who found the mill. He set camp nearby and could hear the soul-tormenting screeching at night. It smelled like rotten flesh and ash, keeping him awake all night. When he investigated the site the next day, he saw that all the graves were dug up, with marks indicating that someone took the corpses to the mill. During daytime it was silent, and the house was locked. The next night he snuck up to the house, but was discovered. Black skeletons were hunting him through the rainy night, and he wrote these pages, so people would find out about it before he would die. Sometimes there's also a large tree with an urn. I would recommend climbing that tree, as you might find out about a small secret. Finally, the structure sometimes has an execution site with an actual working guillotine, which you can use for whatever. And there are imprisoned villagers. There's also another book. It tells about people in a village. They were attacked at night, being dragged out into the open. The brother of the author was taken by the assailants, and shortly later, his life was taken. The villagers were trying to find a way to fight back and escape this nightmare, but the author was the next in the line for the execution. The altar is a small structure in snowy plains and ice-spike biomes that includes a bunch of building blocks like fire braziers, dark iron trapdoors, small pillars, as well as skeleton decoration blocks and small urns. The memorial tree is a small tree structure in which you can find a wither skeleton skull. Inside the tree you can also find a chest. The giant mushroom structure is a structure in swamps and mushroom biomes that is made up of mushroom blocks. In the upper center you can find an urn with some loot in it. There's also a second type of the structure with skeletons inside and a large hollow room at the top where you can also find a small urn. The haunted tower structure contains monster spawners and many special blocks like ceramics, wither skeleton blocks and hands, gravestones, small urns and chests. Below the graves outside the house you can find coffins and sarcophagi with some loot. Inside there are many other urns, barrels, ceramics and even a full iron armor set. Behind the armor set there's a lever which, when pulled, will reveal a chest in the hallway of the same floor. Behind one door there's a room with a trapdoor that leads to a basement. In this secret basement there are many acolytes who conduct experiments, and there are imprisoned villagers as well as some more loot and blocks. There's also an attic with many more acolytes and loot as well as ceramics directly below the roof. In one corner of the house wall, below the stairs leading up to the balcony, there's another secret chest with powerful loot. The crypt is a large underground structure with many monsters and loot. There are soulfire braziers, ceramics, sarcophagi, glazed urns, coffins, dark iron trapdoors, small urns, barrels, skeleton decoration blocks, and candle holders. In this structure you will encounter corrupted pillagers, acolytes, and corrupted vindicators. As you open a coffin or sarcophagus here, a wraith can spawn right next to you, which will attack you. In this dungeon there are library areas with lava underground, and a large central hall with an ender crystal at the top, and other stuff like brewing stands and lecterns. There's also sometimes an arena-styled room with 4 spawners. There are also some secret rooms in the structure, which can be accessed through a secret dark iron trapdoor on the ground, for example. You can also find a secret chest at the end of some corridors below stone piles. You can also find new books in the structure. One tells about the inhabitants of the village, which all have been infected with a plague. The author doesn't know what to do and is waiting for his mentor to ask for help. The other book tells about the adventurer being ordered by his companion and mentor, to which he swore obedience, to commit horrible atrocities. The Dead Tree is a small structure which spawns in dark forests and swamps, and which is simply a large dead tree with some decorative blocks like hanged skeletons, skull piles and gravestones. On top of the tree and in the center there are small urns hidden that contain some valuable loot like diamonds and enchanted books. There's also a trapdoor through which you can access a small room with one of the urns. There's also a nameless hanged mob. At daytime you can approach the mob, right-click it, and it will speak to you. At night you can trade with this mob using corruption items. The ruined structure is a small camp in forest biomes, which has been plundered and has many corpses lying around, contains a chest and barrel as well as beds and other blocks. Behind a few pumpkins you can find an ominous bone star fragment. In the barrels you can find a diary entry by an adventurer. He and his companion discovered his camp. His master ordered him to slay the people of the camp, and the author was following the orders, even though he was starting to question his own actions. There's a second version of the structure which looks like an old abandoned tower. Here you can also find some loot, but you should watch out entering the small mine there. In one corner of the ruin you can find a skeleton skull, and below it you will find a barrel with another book. It contains the instructions for a ritual of reanimation, which we will look at in detail in a moment. At the top of the tower you can find a second ominous star fragment. The third version of the structure is a mud hill with many bone decoration blocks, and also a third bone star fragment in the center. Next to a leading skeleton there's a chest with another book. The author tells about how the villagers have been slayed by him and his master. The villagers had no chance to fight back. His master was collecting their blood, which he poured over a bone staff. that an abomination carried for him. The master took the staff, turned around, and looked the writer into the eye. The author fell unconscious, and when he woke up again, his master was gone. The Like prison is a structure far above the ground, hovering hundreds of blocks high in the sky, above frozen and deep oceans. In this structure you can find a book which tells the story about the two adventurers whose souls were corrupted by taking innocent lives. One of the two was transformed into an evil creature. The other one took the last chance and used the staff of his master against the monster in front of him, casting a curse on it to entomb its soul into stone. Then the magician lifted the prison high in the sky to prevent anyone from laying eyes on it. The staff used to see the monster in the island was broken into 3 pieces and hidden in different places. In the island itself, you can find secret passages that you can access through the 2 large pillars right next to the bone structure. The passages do not contain any special loot. Now you can use the 3 staff pieces you collected to summon a new boss on this island structure. If you didn't find all the rune structures, you can also buy the pieces from the Nameless Hanged at the Dead Tree structure for 64 corruption. Place the 3 fragments in front of the altar in the middle of the island. The spots for the fragments are indicated by the large black spots. You also need a full vial with blood by holding a glass bottle in your offhand while killing villagers with a bone dagger that you can craft or obtain from the acolyte. Now, if it is night, you can right-click the altar with the vial of blood to summon the boss. In the first phase, the champion has 400 HP, 14 armor, it has its coat on and uses magic to attack you. During some of these attacks, the mob has a ring surrounding it, making it immune to attacks. It can shoot laser beams at you, rockets, summon ghouls, let skeletons rain on you, and more. I recommend for you to stay moving, kill the ghouls, and try to search for cover behind the pillars. In the second phase, the coat is gone, the mob has 200 HP, and the champion will be immune to any attacks during this phase. You need to stay away from the boss during that phase, because otherwise it will instantly kill you. So definitely use a boat to fight it. The boss will blind you and teleport you randomly. You need to stay alive, keep your distance from the champion, and when you hear a loud noise while you are blinded, you know the champion gets closer and you need to run away. After some time, this phase is temporarily paused and you can attack the champion again. In the third phase, the champion is basically defeated. It is really slow and only deals melee damage, but it can still do a lot of damage. So stay careful and watch out for your health. I also recommend using a bow here. Upon dying, the champion can drop 5 different staff variants that can be used to summon different colored ghoulings. This ghouling is loyal to whomever summoned it. The staff is also bound to the player who used it first. The mob will follow and teleport to its master. It can also be resummoned once dead. You can right-click a ghouling with a staff, so it disappears, and so it will stay at its current position. If you shift right-click, a ghouling will teleport to you. If you want a ghouling to attack an entity, right-click the entity. You are also able to equip the ghouling with a coffin or sarcophagus by right-clicking with one on it, which creates a new storage opportunity for you. Let's move on to the other mobs. The Wraith has 27.5 HP, deals 6.5 damage, and appears when you are opening a coffin or sarcophagus in a crypt. It will burn in sunlight, and it only drops XP upon dying. The skeleton creeper spawns at night, behaves like a normal creeper, but is faster, has 22 health, and can drop corruption or bones upon dying. It also blinds you upon exploding. The revenant also spawns at night in cold biomes, is pretty fast, will burn in sunlight, deals 3.5 melee damage, has 25 health, 2 armor, and can drop bones upon dying. The nightmare spawns at night, has 45 health, 3 armor, and deals 10 damage, so it is pretty strong, but the mob is also super slow. It is neutral until you look at it, then it will blind you and teleport behind you. Sometimes it will also randomly teleport. It is immune against arrows and can drop corruption upon dying. Corrupted pillagers and corrupted vindicators can be found in dungeons. These fast opponents have 24 health, 2 armor, and deal 5 melee damage. They both will burn in sunlight and can drop corruption upon dying. Acolytes use a bone dagger to attack you. They have 24 health, 2 armor, and deal 5 base melee damage, and additional damage because of their bone dagger. They are also pretty fast, so you should be really careful when they are near. They can drop corruption. The ghoul is a mob that can spawn in forest biomes. It has 20 health, 3 armor, and deals 4 damage. The mob burns in sunlight and can drop rotten flesh upon dying. Every 24,000 ticks, there's a chance that a horde of dozens of monsters will appear together and hunt you, so be prepared for that, as this horde will be pretty dangerous. Corruption can be crafted into dark iron ingots, which can then be used to craft a sarcophagus, coffins in every wood variant, or dark iron building blocks, like trapdoors, dark iron bars, soul and normal fire brazier blocks, candle holders, dark iron blocks, and dark iron doors, as well as an ossuary. Gravestones can be crafted out of many stone blocks, like cobblestone, deep slate, blackstone, sandstone, stone bricks, bricks, and quartz. When placing them down, you can write on them. Small urns and glazed urns can also be crafted for decoration or to store items. The ossuary can be crafted or found as a structure. The block can be used to craft bone block decorations by inserting a bone block. The bone dagger is a weak melee weapon with 5 attack damage and 2 attack speed. There is also a music disc that can be found in the crypt. This covers all the information about the mod. I am a big fan of the mod, as it adds some vanilla-friendly new hostile mobs, beautiful structures, a really cool new boss fight with great animations, and also a pretty interesting lore. Overall, the mod is made in a high quality and really fun to play with. If you don't want to miss any further reviews, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.